We are ready.
All right. Okay, today we're going to start part 2 in the series Hearing from God, part 2 in the lesson on how God speaks to us. We're going to continue from last week, looking at how God speaks to us. God speaking to us is important because it strengthens our faith, it helps us develop our relationship with God, and it helps us hear what God's will is for our life. So we want to hear from God. We're going to continue in the story of Moses. So we saw last week, Moses' life can basically be separated into 3 segments of 40 years. His first 40 years, so he was born a child of an Israelite slave, sent down the river, rescued by the Pharaoh's daughter. So he grew up in the palace of Pharaoh. So he grew up in royalty his first 40 years. At 40, he saw an Israelite being beaten, so he killed the Egyptian. He had to flee for his life, helped some women water their sheep. Their father found out. He married the daughter. So for the next 40 years, he was a shepherd to his father-in-law, living in his father-in-law's house.
Question. He was helping them water the sheep. The dad found out, and then he had to marry him because he was watering the sheep.
Oh, so he was helping them water the sheep, and then they went home, and the father asked why they took so long, and they told him the whole story, and there was a guy helping them, and he said, well, where's this guy? And so they went and got him, and he came in, and his father was a priest, and he said, hey, you can have my daughter's hand in marriage. And so Moses married his daughter. And then we see 40 years later, he's still with them, and he's taking care of the father's sheep. So he was herding the father's sheep.
So this part just totally got left out of the Hollywood version.
Oh, yeah, it's not eventful. So that was, the second 40 years was not too eventful. It doesn't make a good story. And then at the end of that 40 years is where we pick up here. He runs into God in a burning bush. Then he starts his new life. He frees the Israelites there in the desert for 40 years. So then they get to the promised land, and he doesn't make it in. So he has 3 segments of 40 for his life.
So he was about 120 years old.
120, yeah. So,
Yeah, 120, yeah. Okay.
all right, go for it.
Okay. I'm going.
Okay.
Okay, I'm okay.
All right, here we go. All right, now we're on Exodus chapter 3, 1 through 6. So this is while he's pasturing the sheep. Now Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the midst of the bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet the bush was not consumed. So Moses said, I must turn aside now and see this marvelous sight, why the bush is not burning up. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near here. Remove your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said also, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face. He was afraid to look at God. So we saw last week that God basically at this point gave Moses a new identity. So at one point he was born a slave, then he lived in a palace in luxury and royalty, and then he was a shepherd herding flock, and now God is saying, you have a new identity. Now you are the son of Abraham, the son of Isaac, the son of Jacob, and I am your father. You are an Israelite. And we saw also that God revealed himself to Moses, his new identity. He told Moses later on his name. He said, I am that I am. So he revealed himself to Moses And we saw also that the angel of the Lord is a pre-incarnate Jesus Christ. So those are what we saw last year, or last
week, 2 weeks.
last lesson, yes. We see that Moses had 3 periods of 40. So 40 is often seen as a number of preparation or a testing or a trial. So Moses had 40 years of prosperity, then he had 40 years of humility. He had 40 years living in the king's house and 40 years living in the priest's house. So he was being prepared. And we see that Moses also, when he went to Mount Sinai to get the law, he was on Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. 2 different times in the book of Exodus, which has 40 chapters. And when they got to the promised land, they sent him out for 40 days to spy out the land. And so we see it also in other stories. In Noah, the flood was for 40 days and for 40 nights. And Jonah warned Nineveh and so then the flood was preparing the world for a new world. And Jonah preached for 40 days to prepare their hearts to repent and turn to God. We saw that the prophet Ezekiel, he stayed on his right side for 40 days to symbolize Judah's sin. Elijah went without food for 40 days on Mount Horeb. We saw the different judges, Othniel, Deborah, Barak, Eli, and Gideon. They all served for 40 years. The first kings of Israel, Saul, David, Solomon, they each served for 40 years. And then finally we saw Jesus after he was starting his public ministry. He was baptized by John the Baptist. And God said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased." And it was time for him to go start his ministry. It says the Holy Spirit took him into the wilderness for 40 days to be tempted by the devil. So to be preparation. So we see 40 days is often the time of preparation that people have to go that in the Bible. See any thoughts?
40.
40.
40 acres and a mule. That's what I was thinking.
It's amazing just to think about all these things are all 40.
Yeah.
And Christ was 40 years when is that correct?
Oh, he was 33.
33.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that he missed out on it. It would have
He
been,
did 7 years.
yeah. It's incredible.
Well, he didn't need to be prepared. He was well pleased by his father.
His father was well pleased. Yeah.
That's true.
But he went to be tempted.
Yeah.
And he passed, so he was prepared, and he passed the temptation. Okay, and we see that it says the mountain, Mount Sinai, the mountain of God, was on the west side of the wilderness. So it's on the west side of the wilderness. So that means if you're in the wilderness, which direction would you be facing to face the mountain of God?
I just want to say east.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, the mountain was on the west side of the wilderness. So if you're in the wilderness,
You facing west.
yeah, you face west to face the west side.
That was a trick question.
Yeah, that was.
It was kind of a trick question
And we're a little hungry too.
because it was kind of a trick question. But so let's see. So we're talking about facing the west, but let's look at the mountain of God. So God was on the west side. So to face God was to face the west side. And so let's see what the Bible says about that. Something interesting to see. In Ezekiel 8:15 to 17, you have
He
that?
said to me, "Do you see this, Son of Man? Yet you will see still greater and abominations than these." Then he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the entrance to the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs to the temple of the Lord and their faces toward the east. And they were prostrating themselves eastward toward the sun. He said to me, "Do you see this, Son of Man? Is it too light a thing for the house of Judah to commit the abominations which they have committed here? that they have filled the land with violence and provoked me repeatedly? For behold, they are putting the twig to their nose.
Okay, so putting the twig to their nose was something they do for the sun god. But we see that it was an abomination. They had their backs to the altar, which was to the west. And so facing the east was to what you did to worship the sun god. So in that time, so facing the east was considered an abomination. So if you're worshiping facing the east, you have your back to God. And so whenever Israel was sinning against God, they would worship gods to the east. When they would worship Adremelech, Amon, Tammuz, Baal, Osiris, and they kept rebelling against God, they would face to the east. So if the God you're facing is to the east, it's not our God.
To the West Side Story, guys. We're
Yeah, the West Side Story. So the West Side.
You snuck it in there, huh? That was good.
Yeah.
So when they were facing the east, they were being defiant. It was they knew exactly what they were doing. They were trying to defy God.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't by accident or anything like that.
It was,
You know?
they were facing the sun and worshiping the sun
Okay.
instead of
And they
God.
knew that God is in the west side, on the west side, but they chose to worship the sun.
Yeah. And it was,
instead of the sun.
Yes.
well, there was no
Instead
sun
of
yet.
the
Oh,
sun.
that's true. That's
Oh, you're good. My
Yeah.
goodness. Instead of worshiping the sun, but he hasn't come then. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 Timothy 4:16, and I'm reading from NIV.
Oh, not yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I thought you were adding something. Oh, yeah, no, we're not yet. We're not
Okay.
there yet. Yeah, we're good.
So can I ask a question before you go on?
Yes.
Why did you want this particular verse read here? Because of the way it was written? What was...
Oh, because we were talking about, in the passage, it says the mountain of God was on the west side.
Okay.
So I was just bringing out that point that was
In NASB
intentional.
version?
Oh, why did I want NASB? Because NASB says it's an abomination.
Okay.
And so I know like the NIV doesn't say, it says something lesser. And kind of realize the NIV kind of, a lot of places where it talks about Satan or talks about something against God, it lessens it. It kind of waters down anything bad about Satan or abomination. It kind of waters it down so the when God uses the term, so it says something like, oh, it was detestable or something, but abomination is like, gives the emphasis that it was written to, that's like just the horrible of sins. It's not just a sin, it's like the worst of sin, the most insulting of sins. So a lot of the things that were abominations, they would kill you for in the laws. So this was like considered, one of the most horrible sins against God. Well, I mean, that was pretty much every time Israel got, he sent them to be captured by Babylon, sent them to be captured. Whenever they got severely punished, it was because of idolatry. They were worshiping other gods. And so that was the most severe sin. That was worse than any of the other 10 commandments or the other commandments that were there, was the idolatry.
Because he's a jealous God.
He's a jealous God, yeah.
Oh, he makes it very clear. You can't worship any other God except for him.
Right. And so, yeah, just to show the magnitude of it. All right, now we'll get into how God speaks to us. We'll get back to that. So now we went through 4 of them last week, or last time we met. We saw God speaks to us through the Bible. We saw God speaks to us through unusual circumstances or coincidences. We saw God speaks to us through Fleece, which is kind of when you say, well, God, if this is really you, then do this. God, do that. We saw he speaks to you through prayer. And we were on teachers, preachers and teachers. So he speaks to you in people, but we're kind of breaking it up. Specifically, we're saying preachers and teachers. So has God ever spoke to any of you through a preacher or a teacher or a sermon?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Any examples or just?
Well, I stated one last time with Deuteronomy 28. That was through a sermon.
And it spoke to the current situation you were in?
Pastor Loritz always says something every time.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can't keep up now.
I think it happens quite a lot.
Yeah.
Some of my friends live in, they've been to Abundant Life back in the day, but they go to some other church in Fremont now. And this lady's been trying to, they were having some problems in marriage as usual, and one Sunday I was sitting here and wishing that day, man, I wish I had told him, because he was preaching about loving your wife.
Mm.
And I'm thinking to myself, I wish this people could be here. And after the service, they came from Gilroy without letting me know. This guy came here and he heard all this.
Oh, okay.
I was wishing that they were here so he can hear, because some of the things going on in their life. I mean, I know about it, but hearing that kind of preaching from Pastor Loretz, I was just thinking to myself, I wish these guys were here to hear this. And they showed up at this church from Gilroy with they always tell me what they're doing, but that day they didn't tell me. They say, "Oh yeah, we just got off church. Are you here today?" I said, "Yeah, I am here." And I met them, and I couldn't believe this guy was sitting there. It's almost like someone paid Loretz to really preach to him. There was nobody else in the church. I was so amazed by it.
Mm.
So through the word of God preachers, they can speak the word, and it's you.
Yeah.
You just have to sit there and listen to it.
Yeah. A lot of times,
Yeah.
you feel the Holy Spirit working. You're like, oh, that was for me. Yeah. A lot of times, even I hear like, we'll do a lesson, and then Pastor Brian will say something, the same thing or something similar, like the next week or 2 weeks later. And Norma's convinced that I coordinate with Pastor Brian.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I was like, did you hear? He said this too. She's like, yeah, that's because you guys talk. I'm like, no, we don't. She's like, she doesn't believe me. Yeah, we don't know. Yeah, so let's see. So preachers and teachers.
But can I just say,
Mm-hmm.
there's a distinct difference between preachers of the word and teachers of the word.
Mm.
I personally feel.
Okay.
And not all really have, to me, I don't want to say this without sounding condescending or belittling, but just know the Bible, know the references, know the correlations, understanding the science, the energy. Not everyone does like that. I've gone to services where they'll pick a scripture and they'll just build a story around it or a lesson around it, and that's that.
Right.
But I found that there's some that have a unique gift to take a passage and teach the story and not just tell a story.
Right.
And they know all the cross references
Yeah.
throughout the Bible to the story to make the point, and it just comes organically. And I see Pastor Brian as a teacher
Yeah.
of the word, not necessarily get up and just kind of preach.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the churches where they'd read a few verses, and then they, give their sermon, and it was like,
What was the
they just
correlation?
happened to read they got a word for, like not a word from God, but like a couple words out of there, and just ran with it. But didn't really talk about the subject of it. Yeah, but it's a lot more teachers now, because a lot more people. Back then, people weren't going to Bible college and
So
things.
after service on Sunday, I ran up to Pastor Brian, and he actually said something last week. I said, I really feel like school is back in session. Because it just felt like he was happy to be back, and he had a lot to get out, and he was dropping a lot of great, as he's saying, nuggets.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like school was back in session. I even told him, I said, then you got a modified, relaxed version of Mr. Rogers. But I do feel like he's a teacher of the word more so than just get up and preach a couple of things.
Yeah.
Also, I think that people are hungry for the Word of God. I mean, there's this hole inside you that never gets filled by anything. And people are interested in it, but when they encounter a person that is not gifted for it, but wants to do it, it's painful. You know, I mean, you can see almost like you're so hungry, you went to a restaurant, they're just serving you rocks. You just live so, you know you're hungry, but you want something to eat. But you can't get something that's edible, you know? It's incredible what happens when I started going here. I wanted to be defiant. I went back to Catholic Church. I just wanted to hear something different from what I used to hear. And I sit through the whole service, and it's almost like at the end of the service, I'm leaving. I feel so empty and hungry. Like I wanted to hear the Word of God, but it's just the rituals. You know, it's just something that when you find someone, people are actually looking for the Word of God.
Right.
And the difference is when just like the parable of the sower, people are excited about it. But just after they walk away from the environment, what happens? Their daily lives consumes them. You know, sometimes they can never get back into it. So, but someone like Brian, it's like teaching you the Bible in its raw form. Just there's no sugarcoating. You know, for some reason that's what I want. I don't want anything pleasant. I just want it to be like this thing you have to keep growing every second of your life. So it's a gift, some of them.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. All right, you got 1 Timothy 4:16. So yeah, so sometimes the preachers it may be preached good, but it's not. It may or may not be from the scriptures.
Yeah.
So it could be.
Yeah,
That's why I came here. Like, it was. I went to. Okay, so I listened to the sermon at this church, and it was the Lighthouse one, and I still remember everything he said, and I was just like blown away because normally I would go to church, and then as soon as I left, somebody asked me, "Well, what did they talk about?" I have no clue. And then I went to this.
But I feel good.
But I went to this other church that same day. I physically went there, and I just listened to this one online here.
Oh, okay.
And
Who's the other church?
it's recording, so
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
putting it.
good.
But yeah, I went there, and they spoke about the same exact thing. But I had no clue what he was talking about, like at all. Like I just couldn't really follow him. And then that's when I knew that, like, oh, okay, I'm going to start going to this church and listening to this. And that's how I like to learn, you know, because I'm a school type of person, so I want to know the whole thing, like explain it to me, break it down. But, yeah. To go along with that, yeah, I loved it. It wasn't just hooting, hollering, and people running around saying I got the Holy Ghost and screaming. It was more like, no, I'm hearing this, and now I know how to apply it to my life, and I remember it, and I can retain it, and I can use it. You know, I could use this as my weapon. You know.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
But let's go to 1 Timothy. Chapter 4 and verse 16, and I'm reading NIV, and it says, watch your life and doctrine closely, preserving them, because if you do, you will save both yourself and your hearers.
Okay, so that's talking to the teachers or the preachers. It's saying watch your doctrine and preserve it. And because when I saw that verse, something stood out as interesting. It says, so you will save yourself. So you're going to save yourself by having correct doctrine, but also your hearers. So it's like warning teachers, you need to have correct doctrine, but it's going to save those who hear you too. So the converse of that is saying is that if you have incorrect doctrine, then you're thwarting the salvation of those who are listening to you. So it's so you want to be careful of who you're listening to too, because if you're listening to someone that has a wrong doctrine,
Oh my goodness.
it could sound good, but if it's the wrong doctrine, it could impact your salvation. So
yeah, because I reread all the New Testament, and majority of the New Testament says beware of false teachers, because it's a lot of false doctrine that's out there.
Yeah.
That they're not doing it correctly.
Right.
And Paul had to send people out there and write letters to people and actually train people to go speak to them and tell them, hey, you need to be doing this and doing that.
Right. Yeah. Because a lot of people have, different motives, whatever. They use a scripture and change it because they want to get more money, or they change it to get, whatever. Or maybe they just misunderstood it. And so it matters what team you're on. Actually, I went to a funeral Saturday, and I was talking to a guy, and his son is in the NFL. He played for the Tennessee Titans. And I said, how's he doing? He's like, oh, he's doing okay. He said he got hurt last year. He played 2 years for the Titans, and he got hurt. And he got traded at the end of the season. And it was like, oh, that's unfortunate. They said, but he got traded to the Patriots. He said, so he was on the team. So he went during the Super Bowl. Then he showed me a picture. He was like, so he got a Super Bowl ring.
Oh, nice.
That's right.
And he said he got to go to the Super Bowl.
Right place at the right time.
So like, even though he was hurt and he couldn't play, he was on the right team. So being on the right team is important.
Yeah.
So if you enjoy it, it's good, but you want to be on the right team. If it's I was going to name some denominations, but I won't. So, but if if you're in some other denomination, it may sound good or whatever, but
I can give you an example of this, and this is one of the things that impressed me. And I always go back to this. Pastor Bryant, and I guess this is probably a couple years ago, because he used to say, when he know he was about to say something fiery, he'd say, stop the recording.
Yeah.
And I remember this one particular time he did it. He went in on the late Bishop Eddie Long. And anyone come, and I could totally resonate with him, because I'll never forget when I went to Eddie Long's church one time, and he started talking about Muslims on the corner in a very negative way. And so again, to me, we're supposed to love everyone, and I don't believe in shunning how another person chooses to worship God. We're all trying to get to being oneness with God.
Right.
And I don't think it's fair because they choose to, religion is a way of life. So if they choose to serve their community by, publishing, information and selling a newspaper, or fundraising through making bean pies and selling them, there's nothing wrong with that. And I just was so taken back. But the ultimate thing he did was when we did the Million Man March, and he did his own men's march at the Georgia Dome. So I was quite impressed when he took time out to speak on that. 'Cause I don't know when it was just passed away or what the issue was, but he definitely spoke on that. And I would say that's an example of being led by someone not on a righteous accord with or oneness with God, because he's busy trying to justify himself through his position. Right.
I guess I will mention. So there was a sermon with Pastor Brian. He said one of his first ones. He said, I'm the shepherd. I'm supposed to lead you guys. He said, so I'm gonna tell you, don't listen to. And he started naming. Don't listen to Benny Hinn. Don't listen to Creflo Dollar. Don't listen to. And he started naming some people. And it's not just the, okay, they're doing some things that I'm against or whatever, but it's the doctrine is because a lot of the, maybe word of faith or different doctrines, that underneath it's if you have the concept that, well, when Jesus came to earth, he was just a man, and everything that he did, we can do. If Jesus could do it, so like if you have the concept that there was a period where Jesus wasn't God, he was just a man, and therefore, we could do everything, so there's like we could do everything he did, and that's fine, and that sounds empowering. But if you're saying Jesus was just a man, if there's a time when he wasn't God, then that means he was never God. So if there's some that part of your doctrine, that can lead someone, if you follow the logical conclusions of that, eventually that could lead you to losing your salvation. If there are pieces of it that, sound good when you say part of it, but then if you get to, if someone says, hey, Jesus, we could do whatever Jesus did, that sounds good. But then if it's like, okay, they may not specifically say, well, Jesus wasn't God at some period. But it's like if that's their belief and things around it go towards it, then that can lead you to lose your salvation. Because if someone, some Jehovah's Witness come and question you about something, you're going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, if he wasn't, something you, so it's, but if you do understand doctrine, then you may be able to eat the meat and spit out the bones. Because I did, I did, so like Clefco Dollar is a good preacher, like some of the stuff he's saying, but you just gotta, if you've studied, then you can discern, okay, I'll leave that part there.
Yes.
I'll leave that part out and won't take that, and we did a whole series on the prosperity doctrine, so that was, you might want to go look at that. That was eye-opening, and there are some who have other motives. They're doing in it for the money or something, but Paul did say in Philippians, I don't think I put it on there, but Philippians 1:15-18, he said, "Some to be sure are preaching Christ even for envy and strife, but some also from goodwill. The latter do it for love, knowing that I am appointed for the defense of the gospel. The former proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, rather than pure motives, thinking to cause me distress in my imprisonment. What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in this I rejoice." So we want to still rejoice. If the person is preaching Christ and they're drawing people, they're saving more people than we'll ever save, then we still want to rejoice. And, if they're bringing people to Christ, then we still want to rejoice. You don't necessarily have to listen, but we'll rejoice. Okay, so the next way God talks to us is through prophecy. So prophecy is when God speaks through another person. So he specifically told that person something for somebody else. So God speaks through prophecy. So he gave them a word for somebody else. And so we see that a lot in the Bible, and then we see that in churches. Someone say, oh, God gave me a word for you, and come up and tell you something. And so that is a way that God speaks, is through prophecy. And so the problem we've run into in the church, though, is that some people can try to use that for manipulation, to get what they want out of something.
I've seen
that. Somebody told me that God told them I was their husband. I was like, okay. He didn't. I didn't get the memo though.
Yes, you did.
I got a different memo. But some people they may say so you have to be able to test the prophecy. But has anybody had an experience where somebody's given you a prophetic word?
I had someone speak to me one time about if I completely submitted myself to God and let Him be the center of my life, that people would really see me for who I am and not have a misconception. Because sometimes people have misconceptions.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I allow them to do it, and I seen changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
like in everywhere, you know, like work wise, I've been asked for leadership roles now, and you know, at first I never really sensed that out of people. It looked like they just thought I was just there or something.
So change your
Yeah.
life. Change it. So it's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Has anybody else had any
No,
prophetic
this
speech?
field.
Okay.
And I will probably be a little skeptical about it, you know. I think I was walking down San Francisco one time. I think it was something different. This guy walked this Indian guy walked straight to my face. That if I give him money, he's gonna tell me about. I said, I am a follower of Jesus Christ. I don't have people telling me my faith. Have a good day. He was shocked, you know. So people go. I mean, they approach people and then they want to know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So, but I just straight up his face.
No.
I don't know this guy. I mean, yeah, he could be a prophet, but I'm just trying to let you know that messages. I think I'm hearing from God quite often. So you don't have to tell me what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't want to know about tomorrow. You know. So, but a lot of churches use it. In my country, they have used it for so many bad stuff. People will take people's wives and have them bring all kinds of wealth to them that God sent them to do this, but it's all a game, you know. That's one of the reasons why I really enjoy listening to Pastor Puddin Senior. He can preach also, and he warns you about those people. And I think last time he was here about a couple of weeks ago, when he said something about these churches that you see them making people fall all over the place. Did you see anywhere in the Bible where Christ pushed somebody down? He was lifting people up from their circumstances. You know? And I had to think about it for a moment. I said, why are people doing this? I don't get it. You know? They have to be on the ground. And that statement he made kind of resonated with me so much that it kind of answered some of my concern. I've been trying to figure this out all these years. But I do know that these are not, I don't think it's anything about Holy Spirit. It's about people taking control of what people perceive them to be. People look up to them as, just like I will say when Pastor Paul was here, at some point when we have 7,000 and all those things coming here, my wife made, at the time I was married, so my wife made a comment, I went to see, I just see them. These are people, I can talk to them. So my wife was shocked that she saw me go to Pastor Paul to talk to him after church. She's like, you can approach him like that? And I'm thinking to myself, so people are seeing him for more than a preacher and a man of God. And I can, somehow, that was how I was able to come to have a peace of mind that God always does something when things are about to happen where, going into the wrong direction. A lot of people had a different perception of him at the time. And I truly believe that that's why some of these things happened, to kind of shake us back to reality, like, this is not about people, this is about Christ.
Yeah, don't follow the person.
Yeah, so, and
yeah.
I thought I was, for some reason, I thought I was somehow following a person at some point. But
yeah, a lot of people were.
Yeah.
Yeah, how can you tell if someone's a false prophet?
What they say doesn't come true.
Yeah, exactly. If they say that God told them to say it, if they're saying something of their own opinion and it doesn't come true, that doesn't make them a false prophet. But if they're saying God said and any of the, if it happens 200 times but one time it doesn't come true, then they're a false prophet.
And they contradict themselves.
Or you said if they contradict
and
themselves?
they will contradict themselves eventually. They'll say something, then they'll come back and say something else that totally contradicts.
There was a preacher that predicted that the world was going to, give a date, that the world is going to end.
Yeah.
And we're still here. So it was kind of something that a lot of preachers really spoke very badly about him. If you really read the Word of God, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they lost a a lot of people were like, "Oh, see, Christianity is lost faith in Christianity because of it." They're like, "Oh, see, it's just a scam. It's just a sham. They were wrong." It's like, no,
I think he
that was
probably
good.
did it because of arrogance. He felt at some point people started to make him believe that he's God or something, you know.
He may have heard something. I mean, people, you have a lot of people that heard something. So, Joseph Smith heard something that made him write the Book of Mormon. Muhammad heard something that made him. People heard from something, but it just may not have been, who we're trying to hear from. So if the prophecy does come true, does it mean it's from the Holy Spirit?
I wouldn't,
I'm not easily convinced.
you know.
Let's see, there's somebody who has Acts 16:16 through
That would be
18.
me. Oh,
Yeah.
I got the second Acts. I'm sorry.
Once, when we were going to the place of prayer, we were met by a female slave who had a spirit by which she predicted the future. She earned a great deal of money for her owners by fortune-telling. She followed Paul and the rest of us, shouting, "These men are servants of the Most High God, who are telling you the way to be saved." She kept this up for many days. Finally, Paul became so annoyed that he turned around and said to the spirit, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to come out of her." At that moment, the spirit left her.
Yeah, so she was accurately predicting the future. She was telling the future, but it wasn't through the Holy Spirit.
No.
It was through another spirit. So it's not that necessarily that, psychics and things of that are wrong. That's the issue. Isn't that whether they're wrong or right.
Yeah.
The issue is the source. So the issue isn't whether horoscopes are wrong or right. The issue is the source. So if it's not the Holy Spirit, then we shouldn't want to be involved in it. So someone can give you a word, just because it's accurate doesn't mean it's the Holy Spirit. If someone can do something supernatural, they can, if they have power to maybe knock you down or something, it doesn't mean it's fake. It doesn't mean that it's not supernatural. It just may not be the Holy Spirit. And so one of the things you hear, but since there are so many false prophecies going on, sometimes you hear in churches that God only gives you a prophetic word to confirm something that he's already told you. Has anybody heard that? Yeah, you've heard it? Yeah, so a lot of people preach that. They say God only gives you a prophetic word to confirm. They say if someone gives you a prophetic word and you haven't already heard it, then, but that's not, but we see that in the Bible many times, people giving prophetic words. They weren't confirmation. When Samuel told Saul he was going to be king, he got scared. That was the first time he heard it. When the prophet told Hezekiah he was going to die, that was the first time he heard it. So, we see a lot of examples where that's not the case. So, that's something people say to protect you, but it's not necessarily the case that it's a confirmation. It could be.
So it's mostly about the source.
The source,
That counts.
yeah, the source is what counts.
Because people fortune tellers can tell you some things that blows your mind. But
Yeah.
it's not coming from the Holy Spirit.
Right,
But it doesn't make it false. They're getting it from a source that you're not part of.
right. Or they
don't
can
want
tell
anything
you,
to do
oh,
with it.
your grandfather used to call you
Yeah.
Snuggles. He did.
Yeah.
Like that. That doesn't mean it's the Holy Spirit. Well, they're not claiming it's the Holy Spirit. The fortune
No.
tellers, I guess.
Of course not. Yeah.
They're claiming it's your grandfather, but it wasn't your grandfather. Okay. So another way God talks to us is through tongues and interpretation of tongues. So that's another one in that area. So that the gift of tongues is the Holy Spirit speaking, but the gift, if you don't understand the tongue, then that's not God speaking to you. And so there are people that have the gift of tongue, but there's a gift of interpretation of tongues where somebody would interpret the tongue and tell you what it says. But then let's see what Paul says about the gift of tongues. You have 1 Corinthians 14,
Yes.
27 to 28.
Okay. And I'm on King James Bible.
Okay, that's fine.
So, if any man speak in an unknown tongue, let it be by two, or at the most by three, and that by cause, and let one interpret. But if there is no interpreter, let him keep silence in the church, and let him speak to himself and to God.
Right. So Paul is saying that if you're in church and somebody's speaking tongues, there should be somebody there to interpret. Because there's a gift of interpretation of tongues. And they're saying if there's nobody there to interpret,
Just
be
keep
quiet.
silence.
So he's saying don't, go around speaking tongues because it's not helping anybody. If no one understands it, so if it is a language for you and God, then there's no reason for you to be yelling it to everybody else. If it's a word for everybody else, then there will be an interpreter so everybody else will understand it.
One of the things I'm confused about this, I've always had to think about this passage here is when the Holy Ghost came upon the disciples, they were speaking in tongues, but the relevance was there were people from all over because that was a celebration time.
Yeah.
People can hear their people speaking their languages.
Right.
So if somebody is speaking in tongues and then no one that knows what they're speaking, I'm just trying to find out if it's real or is this something that people can just go into.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not the tongues that came on Pentecost Day. So the tongue that came on Pentecost Day, it wasn't a language that nobody understood. Like everything that they were saying, everybody understood it in their own language.
Yes.
Well, everyone heard it. Like it would be like I'm talking, you hear it in your native language. Italian person hears it in Italian. A Jewish person hears it in Hebrew. It's just me speaking to one thing. A German person hears it in German. So everybody hears it in their own language. But what we have is the opposite. One person speaks and nobody understands. So it's not necessarily false, but it's definitely not that same. You can't relate that to what happened on Pentecost because that's obviously not the same incarnation of the Holy Spirit. Incarnation, I don't know that word. But anyway, that's not the same. But Paul does talk about interpretation of tongues, so it implies that there is a tongue where people can't understand it.
Yes.
But he's saying that's a tongue that you're to use to speak to God. That's not a tongue to be yelling out to everybody in church. That's a tongue to speak to God with.
Has any one of you experienced someone speaking in tongues? Where you how you feel about it, or how you read about it?
Experience like understand or just
Yeah,
heard
like
someone.
like somebody speaking in tongue, a preacher or someone that you've been close to.
Oh yeah, I went to a Pentecost church, and they all were speaking in tongue, and it kind of seemed like they believed that everybody was supposed to speak in tongue.
Yeah, if you're not saved if you can't speak in tongues, that's what they believe.
Yeah, I never liked the pressure, or it always seemed like for some that was be able to speak in tongues was a rite of passage, like I'm in that kind of that level or that crowd or whatever. How do I know what you're saying is tongues? Because I was told tongues is something you just speak natural, you feel it, but I don't know,
Yeah,
you can't really, when you hear people, like, okay, like in church and service and stuff, but I've never had an opportunity to really, I'm analytical by nature, so I'm going to understand, the science behind or what's really happening.
The science.
I don't know, I'm just analytical, I'm sorry.
Well, it won't be.
But because I just feel like sometimes I've seen one person comes to mind. I didn't know if it was genuine or if it was just forced because it was part of the religious groupie kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Am I saying this right?
Yeah.
So have any of you ever spoken in tongues?
No.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I went to a church for a year that was into the prophesying and speaking tongues and people falling down and all of that, and I didn't know if it was real. So it was definitely real.
Okay.
In the sense, I knew one woman that she had went up to get prayed for, and the laid her hands, and she fell down and hit her head, and she was out of work for like 6 months. And so it's like, so they weren't faking. And I like knew the pastor, and he like one time we went to lunch, and he's like, yeah, he said a third of them, it's real. He said a third of them, they're doing it because they think they're supposed to fall down. And I forgot what the other third was.
Okay, well then I feel validated.
But
To have a pastor say that, then my thoughts are spot on.
I mean, people can take something to any level they want. I mean, even 2020 shows you hidden cameras that they were going to find people in the background, trying to find out if they can act. And some of them, they pay the money for it. It was on 2020. It's unfortunate that they're doing this in the name of Christ. I mean, that's what's really, it's destroying everybody else out there because people think that this is all fake,
Yeah.
I have a 26-year-old that went to Valley Christian schools his whole life, San Jose, cost me a fortune. And he got to college and final year he said that he read through the Bible that there's no proof for any of this. And it was like somebody took a dagger and put it through my heart. And I'm trying to find out, how did this kid get to this place?
So it was a Christian school? Was he learning theology, or he was?
Well,
just in the,
because of public school, you're not allowed to, speak of Christ. So they went
okay.
from elementary school. There's a school in San Jose called the Valley Christian Schools. So this is where you want to make sure that they go in there so that there's no mix-up about growing up and knowing about Christ as a child. But once they got to college, UCM said, meet some other kids. I mean, he's into science.
Okay.
So they started trying to read all these books, and he said that somebody had to convince me because I appreciate you guys doing it, but I don't see any proof. I mean, there's research and all kinds of things that they're doing, but whatever you put your mind into is what you're going to get good at. If you want to read something that discredits, it's going to discredit the Word of God, you're going to be good at it. Or you can read the Bible and then learn about what God can do. So I just seen those things when I say it, they are not doing Christians and they're not doing good to Christianity in America.
Yeah, a lot of people lose their religion in college because science is in opposition to Christian, because they're teaching, theory of evolution and Darwinism,
and he wants you
the teachers speak badly against Christianity.
I'm not hearing that out. But they're gonna come back at the end of the day. That's what the Bible promised.
Yeah.
You teach them,
Yeah, they'll come back. All right, what y'all doing over there? All right.
Being bad. I'm ready for Acts 3 and 13.
All right. So the next way that God talks to us is through dreams and visions. Dreams are when you're asleep and you see pictures. Visions are when you're awake. And dreams and visions are hard to interpret. Has anyone had God speak to you through a dream or a vision?
Yes. When I get, that's when I probably do my most thinking. It's when my mind is settled to listen and sleep and stuff. Get the message just something to come in, just, hey, you better do this.
Okay.
So I always treat when thoughts of say, hey, act this way or act upon this, I always take that as God speaking to me to go do something, to do what He said do or not do, So yeah.
Okay. And there's some that, like Daniel, and that can interpret dreams. That people have, it's a gift. There are
And Joseph,
yeah. The Magi, Nebuchadnezzar spoke to in a dream. But dreams, the enemy can also influence your dreams as well, though.
Yes.
So
I have had some encounters in dreams where things are revealed, and it's incredible how you can get to every detail of it. One of my niece that lived, came here when I was, she was, I invited her to come to stay. She was working with the French embassy in my country at the time. She came for holidays, but she wanted to stay here. And eventually she stayed here, met a guy, got married, and I had no idea that they were having baby or anything. But I saw her in a dream. She was having a child, but it was a girl. And she wanted to give the child a name from a different tribe in our culture. And I was trying to find out why would you want to give him this name, because it doesn't seem to be, I mean, the name was crystal clear. And I woke up in my dream and I couldn't believe. So I talked to my mother about it. She said, yeah, your niece is probably pregnant. And within a few months, we found out that she was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
She had the baby. The name of the child was exactly the name
In your dream.
that I saw in the dream. And I never spoke to my niece about it.
Oh, wow.
The same Faith was the name of the child. But that name she gave him a name from a different tribe. But it's almost like Jesus and Christ. So the same identical name, and it was a girl. So some of those kind of dreams is so clear that you have no, but in my family, my father has the same gift also.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes you see some things that are so horrific. But what I learned as I was growing up, because there was too many of them, was I don't speak of them to people. So if I don't speak about it, it never comes out. Especially when it's something that is kind of somebody losing their life or something really bad happened. So I just rebuke it. I wake up in the middle of the night, or I can start speaking to God and try to rebuke that dream. But every time I've told what I saw, it's always been crystal clear, identical. Doesn't matter. Yeah. So it's real for dreams.
Yeah.
And you don't know when it happens. You just see it, but sometimes the details is too much. It comes to reality that when I was a kid, I saw myself coming to States. There was no means of doing it. I just told my family that I would go to America, and nobody believed it. And I saw myself in dream, wandering the state in the U.S. Everything I see was vivid. I've never been to overseas. I see streets, I see trees, and at some point, the dream kept going where I found myself inside an airplane. I've never flown in an airplane before. And in the middle of the air, the plane would divide in half. Not an accident. So people in the rear seat where I was sitting will return back to my country. The other ones continue. The first time that plane got through to U.S., I ended up coming here that same year.
Oh, wow.
But I had to penetrate in the dream to the United States. And I ended up coming here. So there's a lot of things in the dream that, but you can't explain it. You don't know why. But just having the opportunity to read the Bible and see what God can do. God may be talking to you, but you have to be able to, just like Samuel when he was confused while he was hearing a voice,
Yeah.
So I try to embrace it. But God does speak in the dreams.
Yeah.
Big time, yeah.
Amen.
Never had that experience.
Yeah. I can't recall, yeah.
My visions are a little bit different. I could just say I can see something and obtain it. I have that vision. That's about it. But nothing God related come to me in a dream.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it speaks to different people in different ways.
Exactly.
Yeah, mine's is more. I flip the Bible, and I can get there, and then I'll be shocked half the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I make sure I read it, because that's my source of communication.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Some
incredible.
people are. We're gonna probably talk about that. Yeah, but some are like seeing things. Some is knowing things, and some is hearing things, and that's kind of how God will talk to you. So another way He talks to you is through peace. So just you make a decision, or you have to make a decision, or something's going to happen, and you're worried about it, anxious, and then all of a sudden you have like a supernatural peace about you. And you go, okay, I know, it's like something you should have been worried about and wondering about, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm not really. Then you pray about it, and you're not worried about it anymore.
Okay, you just spoke to me.
You
said you just spoke to me.
Oh, I just spoke to you?
I didn't really know if that was that, but like how you were explaining it, that's exactly my situation. I don't really get rattled like that, and it's usually because God is probably setting me up for stuff. Like I might get declined one thing, and then it's only for a specific reason, and I will have a peace about it. And and I know I'm good, and other people will be rattled, but I know I'm like really good. Like when I tell people like my issues are my problems, and I'm like, nah, it's gonna be all right, And then there's times where I don't have a peace about something, and I just, and it kind of worries me and is bothering me about the situation, and that door is usually closed, and I could tell, like, oh yeah, that door's not gonna open, and I think God kind of talks to me in that way, like after you were saying that, because this happens lots of times with me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's good, and that's interesting. Anybody else? Peace, have anything? So the next one is actually closing doors.
I've had some doors closing. I think it was probably for, when I look at it, I noticed it was closed for that reason specifically.
Yeah. So sometimes you don't find out till after the fact.
That's how it is.
Some people call it an anti-miracle. So it's like you want a miracle to happen. It's like it doesn't happen. It is like sometimes you may look back at it and go, man, I'm so glad I didn't get that. I was praying for that. I was hoping for it. And I was on the path to get it. It seemed like 100% it would happen. Then all of a sudden, I didn't get it. And it was like sometimes God will close the door, so maybe a layoff or a breakup or something, and then you may not know it at the time. You may look back 5 years later and like, ooh, I'm glad. Yeah, that was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I missed the flight from San Jose to London. Oh, God. I took days to prepare. I was so excited going to London. My nephew is there, and my sister was coming from Nigeria to meet. So we're going to meet. She comes here every year, but that year she wanted to go to London for seminar. I prepared everything. I was so excited for days. And when I went to the airport, I had Uber drop me off. I had my U.S. passport renewed recently, but they send it back to you with some holes punched in it, with the new one also. And after all these preparations, packaged and got to the airport, about to check in at the counter, I gave the lady my passport. She looked at me like, what's wrong with your passport? I said, what do you mean? I just got it renewed. She said, but it has holes in it. And I was so stressed out. This chaos, I tried everything let me just take Uber to go get my other passport they said, no, the flight is leaving in 1 hour. And it's going to close, the gate is going to close. I looked at my luggages, and I stood there for a moment, and something happened to me that moment. I just thought about God. I said, is he trying to send a message to me? And I can feel this peace from nowhere just overtook me. And I started talking to the people there, and it was very, they came out and they put me on the flight for the next day. But that moment was like the world was going to end, because I already had plans. I had people waiting for me at the airport. So I had that peace, and then I was laughing on the way home, because I was trying to force God to do something that maybe it wasn't the day He wanted me to go there. So I had to make phone calls, and then tell my sister. The first thing she said, yeah, God didn't want you to come today. And the next day it was smooth as everything else. So that peace, because it was so chaotic. Just imagine you trying to travel overseas.
Yeah.
You're at the airport, everything is already, you already have your tags on your luggages, and you're gonna miss that flight, and you can't do anything about it. I wanted to scream, I wanted to fight somebody there, I wanted to ask for their boss, but I could just hear that word. It's like, just have peace. So I definitely know what it's like when you are experiencing some hard time, and all of a sudden you feel that peace of God, and it was like that thing, it has no value anymore. You just let it be. It was calm. Yeah.
I was actually looking for an example of it, and I wasn't going to use it, but since you mentioned the flight, it was Seth MacFarlane, the guy who wrote Family Guy. I guess he was supposed to catch a flight to New York, and I wasn't going to use it because I don't think he's a Christian, but anyway, but he was supposed to catch a flight to New York, and I guess there was some big mix-up with his travel agent, and he had gotten drunk the night before, and he got to the airport and he missed his flight by just a few minutes, and it turned out to be one of the 9/11 flights that crashed into the building. So he missed it, but I don't know if that was God, but that would be an example.
A deciding factor of me coming up here, I wasn't going to come up here at first because I was in a long-term relationship, but then it just didn't work out, and I really wasn't going to come up here, and it was a good job I had offer up here, you know, and I think only because that relationship ended is the only reason why I really truly came up here. And then I was able to like work on myself too, and just grow in all types of areas, and got closer to God, because I think, you know, it was more like idolatry, because I was putting her before anything, you know, before going. I didn't really care about all of that. I more or less wanted to be with her and love her more than I would love God. And I think he closed that door in that relationship on purpose, so I can get out of San Diego, come up here, start fresh, work on my relationship with him, and see, you know, how much better my life will be.
Work on your relationship with yourself.
Yeah, in myself too.
Yeah, amen. I see there's Mark Batterson says, at some point we must recognize that the circumstances we ask God to change are often the very circumstances God is using to change us.
That's incredible.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
At some point we must recognize the circumstances we ask God to change are often the circumstances God uses to change us.
That's kind of almost reminds me of the Serenity Prayer.
Oh, let me, the things I can't change. How's it go?
Grant you the strength to accept things.
Grant me the serenity
We know
to
what it is. We just gotta say it.
change what I can, accept what I can't, know the difference between the two.
I had a friend, and we went to college together, and he bought some, like, a bunch of counterfeit stuff from China and sold it over here. And I mean, he was doing it a lot, and he ended up getting a felony off of it. But it was actually a blessing in disguise for him, because he was just kind of going a little crazy and stuff, you know, just doing that, what he was doing. And then because of that situation, it turned his life around and drew him closer to God. And I mean, he's been through a lot, but even the felony charge really didn't stop him from getting a job, because he has a great job. But what it did was, I mean, it helped. I mean, because his is getting expunged. It was just a manufacturing merchandise or something like that. So they didn't look at it that serious. But from that bad situation, it completely changed who he was. He's not doing things that he used to do. And he drew closer to God and got married and has a great job and about to get it expunged off of his record. And so, I mean, yeah.
It's So the felony turned his life around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people find God in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Find God in jail.
Well, he didn't go to jail, but he just got.
Uh,
It wasn't like that type of felon. They just,
Mm.
did that because he didn't have money for a real lawyer.
uh,
So he had to plead out.
mm. Okay.
But through that situation,
Through the circumstance.
that
yeah.
circumstance,
Work.
it helped him get closer to God because he started attending church, praying, and doing all of that, and then he found the love for God.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people, they come to church or they come to God when they go through something really
Problem.
bad. Take something really bad that they go through to bring them to God.
Mm-hmm.
From the show me stage.
And sometimes he puts you there, because that's the only time you think about him. Sometimes
Yeah.
he will close your door so you can come to him.
Yeah.
And when we come and get everything we want, we start feeling like, oh, I don't have to go to church today.
Yeah.
So sometimes, even with some really bad stuff happening to us, it's just trying to save us from ourselves.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a lot of people, or if not the majority of people, it's like they only go to God when they need something.
Oh yeah.
Or they get. I remember like when I used to go to singles Bible study. A lot of people would come in and it was because they were late. One day they were laid off.
Exactly.
They were laid off, so it's like, okay, now I got time for Bible study, and so it's like they would come. Then they would have time for God. So a lot of people have to go through stuff when they want them. So it's you don't want to make God be in a situation where if God wants to get close to you, He has to take away stuff from you.
Yeah.
So you want to be the type of person where God can bless you, and it won't hinder your relationship with Him. It's like if He has to keep humbling you in order for you to get close to Him, then you're going to keep getting humbled. It's like, so we want to be in a state where the more we bless us, the more time we spend with Him. We still want to be one. We don't want to say, oh, I'm too busy now. I got all this stuff going on, and I don't need God now.
Because you don't feel any more needs, because you're looking at God as just your provider.
Yeah.
Instead of a relationship you have to deal with every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody has been there, if you think about it. I mean, different stage in your life. It's almost like trying to take a toy from a kid. You're on time out. So then they will notice their parent. Like, wait a minute, what do you want me to do? Your room is dirty, but they won't hear you until you remove that toy from them. So I think God, we call Him Father. That tells you all you need to know about it. There has to be something to get our attention. But until you get close to Him, where you've had things and still put Him first, and know that you couldn't have that with by your own efforts.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you get at that moment. You still know that He's in charge. The problem is to get to that level where you can be consistent with it.
Yeah.
And that's what getting close to the Word of God and hearing the Word of God. KFAX is every preacher you can imagine. It could be the same topic that we're discussing today. You get to hear the same thing from so many preachers. See how they approach it. Brian will approach it a different way. The lighthouse. When you hear the lighthouse, when we had that series here, you can hear another preacher talking about, but it wouldn't make any sense to you. And it's just the way they bring it down here, and then also Pastor Punan Senior talked about the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And then some of the way he breaks down the Word of God, it's almost like somebody giving you something that excites you, so you want more of it. If you don't have interest, or somebody get your interest focused on it, or how to understand it, that's why people are struggling with it. Once you get to understand what it means and what it says to you,
Right. Yeah.
it's a struggle. You just want to be left alone when things are going good.
Yeah.
The
So,
Holy Spirit can. Once you get into this, because I'm experiencing it. I've been single for a year and a half now. I have opportunity to meet people, but I can't. you just can't just go in there because you feel to hang out with somebody. I mean, sometimes it's like, I wish I didn't know what I know now, you know, but I know it's good for me, you know, so.
All right, so let me read the conclusion.
I don't get to do Acts 13 too?
No, not yet. We'll come back next. Oh, no, all right. We'll go a little bit. We'll go a little bit further.
Yeah.
Go a little bit further. All right. Let's see. So the next one is that we'll do the next one. He brings things to your memory. So or brings things to your mind, brings things to your memory. So maybe you're reading a scripture, then he brings something to your mind. Or I do remember an example of this where he brought something to my memory where, I don't know why this lesson I have so many relationship examples, but I was asking God if someone was the right one for me, and I was praying for, is this the right one? And then all of a sudden, like, I just got flooded with, like, it was like something that she had said 1 month, oh, I'm going to do this, and then something 6 months, then I like started, like, it was like putting together, it's like, this was the reason that she, like, it was just like I saw, like, all the pieces, like, this is, of the story that, she said she was going to do this, then later this happened, then later this happened, it was like months later, and I didn't put it all together, but it was like just flashes of, like, the story of what had actually went down, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's what that was all about. And then but it was just like a bunch of memories came to my mind all of a sudden. It was like, wait, that's what that was all about. Oh wait, that was the reason that she did this. And it was like just like all of this stuff that like unveiled like, bad motives or bad intentions or manipulation or stuff. It was just like all of this stuff just came to my mind at once. And like since it was like so many months separating it, I hadn't pieced it together. But it was just like all flashed at once, and it was like, wait a minute.
You saw the whole timeline laid out before you.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I guess that answers that. And then one more is that you hear talked about a lot is the still small voice. Has it got talk to anybody with still small voice?
Overlapping a little bit in the others.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard a voice, technically a voice.
That's your voice.
Well, no, but some hear it. Some people say they hear it as a distinct voice, just distinct from their voice.
Yeah.
Has anybody heard a voice distinct from their voice, your voice? Usually, I hear it as a.
I have my mother's voice.
Mine is usually.
She did her job, that's what it is.
Not sure what that
You
is.
better not do that. And you look behind you, she's not there. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah.
But yeah, there are times I feel like I hear a voice. I mean,
A whisper.
just a,
Just a-
yeah, I mean, there are times. I can't pinpoint them because I'm just so, for me personally, I'm just so in tune and accustomed to listening to that sixth sense or that inner voice.
Yeah.
That when it comes to me, I recognize it and know to respond.
Okay.
And there have been times when I didn't listen and wished I had. And so, yeah, I get the voice.
Okay.
I never really paid attention to whether it was like a man's voice or, but I'd get,
Okay.
mostly I had my mom, like, especially, she used to wake me up in the morning, Stacy. And I always knew the way she says Stacy. So I would, but yeah.
Okay.
I almost feel sometimes like it's the still small voice. It's not like God's audible voice, but it's the thought that He places in our head.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a sudden clarity or a sudden understanding of something that you've been dealing with. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, God, I think you're telling me this, you're putting this into my head, but
Yeah.
it's not an audible voice.
Right. That's how it usually is for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how it usually is for me. But some people.
What about if you're doing something that you know you're not supposed to be doing, and you got this kind of like conviction before you're gonna do that?
Yeah. The unction of the Holy Spirit.
Is that kind of like what you're talking about as a voice, or you guys actually hear things?
Well, I don't hear a literal voice. Other people do hear a literal voice.
I mean, do we
don't
know God's voice? I mean, we know Hollywood's interpretation of God's voice.
Well, but I think that all of this is
So I
God's
think
voice
it's
because
words.
it's
I
how
like
how
the-
he speaks to you. So he
Right,
speaks
so-
to different people different, and so that is God's voice. You know, if he speaks to you through the Bible, that is God's voice to you. If he speaks to you through preachers, that is how God's voice sounds to you, and it can change in different seasons. So you may be at one early Christianity, he may speak one way, and then at other points he may start to speak to you in a different way. At different times in your life, it could change how he talks to you. So how he communicates to you could change. And I've heard it said that like when you're a baby Christian, you know, he will change how he talks based on how you hear. But once you get mature, he'll expect you to change how you hear based on how he's talking. And so I think there isn't one way that he talks, but it's different for different people, but it can change for
Do you believe in
the same
angels?
person. I do.
Do you believe that
That's number 20. No.
Do you believe that God sends his angels down in the form of people?
Yeah.
Like some people, sometimes people may like come into your life in a
Yes.
particular time and then poof, they're gone.
Yeah.
That's why I was ready to go there. I always loved that movie, and I always would hate
Which
when
movie?
The Preacher's Wife with Denzel Washington and Whitney Houston.
Okay.
Yeah.
See the Preacher's
Great
Wife.
movie.
People
I love that song.
really, I think a lot of people with their shallow mindsets miss the whole essence of that movie. And it was really about how God sends us angels in form of people who come in our lives to help us through a difficult period or whatever we prayed for. And then once their deed is done, they move on. And I really believe in that. Richard Smallwood, maybe we can add this to your playlist. Angels Watching Over Us is one of his songs, and that's really one of my favorite. And I really believe that God speaks to us through angels as well.
Yeah.
I think we're also angels of God because
Like
he can send you now. There could be somebody on your way out now. You don't even know it's there. And you give him your wallet on the way out
Yeah.
because he needs them. God is sending you
Yeah.
as an angel to him.
You two are my angels.
Oh.
Because when I first came, I was an emotional wreck. And I come here because I feel like you've been an angel in the sense of your tranquility, your desire to be in this role helped me to calm down and calm my thoughts.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Glad.
And when we were sitting that first time, I told you I was angry that night. I was angry.
For real?
Yeah.
You didn't come across angry.
I was hurt more than I was hurt. I was hurting.
Oh, wow.
And the only reason why I was here was because I knew I had to give my cousin spiritual entertainment. And we said, okay, we're going to come to Bible study. And then I told you, we went downstairs and I was like, oh, this is not going to work. And then I came up and we had such a great time. And I was like, okay, I can, because I'm very, cautious because I don't like to be with the overzealous people. I like to just be very straight and just clean and pure. Like, I like the fact that this is a small group. I don't like if we were all in this, because then I withdraw and it just, but this is much more of a friendly setting where we get to share our stories and our testimonies and things like that. But yeah, I actually was like, okay, I can come to his Bible study.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you made it.
But yeah, I
Glad you
was in a dark place in June. I was in a dark place, and you guys just stumbling on here. God, I guess, telling me, nah, that's not where you need to be, and then just having the desire to still seek within the church. Well, with all these cars out here, where's everybody else? And that's how I really just kind of stumbled in here that night, and I'm very thankful that I did, and I didn't give up.
I'm glad you found us.
You are not alone, my dear. I've never done this before.
Me either.
That 2 weeks ago was the first time I went to a Bible study with anybody. For the first time. But it was something about it. It was so fulfilling. And meeting people for the first time, this kind of comfort level, I couldn't miss it. I've been thinking about it today. And it doesn't matter what it is, I couldn't let anything stop me from coming.
Amen.
I heard about your story that day and the strengths that you have, things you've gone through. So for me, it's almost like this testimony. That's,
Oh, it gets worse.
You know?
You talk about me with my mastectomy?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know?
I had two things, horrible things going on simultaneously.
But the most amazing thing about this is that here you are sitting here like, if you don't tell anybody about those things, but you found your faith, you know? So what I've seen since I started coming to church and getting closer to God is, if you have faith, it doesn't matter what is behind you, you still have your peace.
All right, well, let me, I'll give the short version of the conclusion. So the point of hearing from God is to strengthen our faith, is to develop relationships, is to ascertain God's will, is to be in communion with God, and is to get direction. And we have to make sure that once God tells us to do something, once we do hear from God, we have to have the faith to do what he tells us to do. So once we do start hearing from God, so we want to seek to hear God, but we have to, once we do hear from God, it's a double-edged sword, because he may tell us to do something we don't want to do. So we have
We always have to submit.
we have to make sure we have the faith to do what he wants to do, even when it doesn't make sense, even when we don't understand it, and even when it looks like it's taking us further than the goal we had for ourselves. So we want to continue to trust God and seek God and listen for his voice. So let's walk in the way, let's seek the truth and live the life.
And see, that's probably for me where I've struggled, because I've probably lacked faith. Faith is probably intertwined somewhere with self-esteem, but I've kind of lacked that. And I'll say this, but I don't want you guys to crowd me when I say this, because actually in June I was really on the precipice. And so I'm not there today to the level that I was back in May and June. You know, it's kind of like when a seed has been planted, it never really, really goes away, but the intensity of the thoughts are just like night and day between now. And I think a lot of it was, you know, having somewhere to go and not, because I'm not that person that's going to go run the church when I get in trouble, because I feel like I'm being a hypocrite. So I wouldn't do it. But I really felt comfortable, because it was helping to like bring me peace and just bring me calm and just give me something else to think about, give me something else to, you know, and then this is something I should have in my mind. I should understand. I should know the Bible more. I should know, you know, the Word of God a little bit more. So it was kind of like the perfect timing.
Okay.
And then you got Kelly's endorsement. So hey, y'all were totally endorsed by Kelly.
Oh yeah,
so
Kelly, your cousin.
Yeah, cause I affectionately say Kelly. I said, you know, gospel's in her DNA. Because my grandmother used to, when I was little, I went to church with her every day, all the day. And all her kids, like my mom, when she got old, she stopped. So I didn't go a lot. I would go in spurts. And then after my son, I was going because, okay, I got to show my son the right way. So I would go in spurts. But Kelly, my grandmother, to her father, and to her, I mean, that's a legacy of dedicated, true Christian followers. And, and I affectionately say it's in her DNA.
All right.
Because, she was proud that night. I've been
really?
Remember, she was like, I've been going to Bible study for 20 years. She was proud.
Yeah.
She was proud. I was like, well, this is my first time. She said, well, this is...
Yeah, she was like, I'm a pro at this. I can do this with my eyes closed.
Pretty much.
All right. Like Jonah 3:7. Oh, no.